Who's familiar with the story of the Wizard of Oz? Raise your hand. The Magician d'Oz. most people, I would say. So, in the Wizard of Oz is the story of a little girl named Dorothy. She's in a journey to go back home. And inside of this journey, she meets 3 friends. And they become 3 allies to her. So we're going to be inspired on these 3 allies today in order to learn 3 principles on how to give voice to your hands. So, who would be the first ally?
Scarecrow.
Exactly. So, let's call Scarecrow. And in the story of the Wizard of Oz, what was Scarecrow? What was his wish?
To have a heart.
No.
Brain.
To have a brain.
To have a brain.
He wanted to be intelligent. He wanted to have a brain. So the first principle that we're going to use together today is on how to use our brains better, more efficiently. How to use your brains in order to use your hands. Make sense? So far? Okay. Now, Scarecrow in real life, our ally, his name is George Lakoff. And I'll give you information about him, don't worry. George Lakoff is an important scientist. He teaches cognitive linguistics in the University of California in Berkeley. He has developed a theory, the theory of how we use conceptual metaphors. This is where it starts getting interesting about how to use our hands. Now, we use our hands in different ways. There are at least 3 different ways. We use signs, we use signals, and we also use symbols or metaphors. Anybody knows what's the difference between those? Okay. So a sign is a representation that it has a direct connection with the element that is represented. So what would be an example of a sign? An example of a sign would be, yes?
Hi.
Say again?
Hi.
Not yet. Yes. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are signs.
What's this for victory?
Now that's not a sign
That's
anymore.
not a sign.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a sign. If I do this, what is it?
Shoot. Gun.
Okay, it's a gun. It has a direct connection with what is trying to represent. We also agree culturally that that is a gun, but somehow we make it look similar. Also, for example, sign language. What's this for sign language? This is A. So letters in the alphabet are signs, and signals with our hands for sign language, there are signs as well. But signs can be culturally based. There is as well signals. And signals, they don't necessarily have a direct connection with what they're trying to represent. And they're also cultural. So a signal could be, for example, what's that?
Stop.
Stop. Okay, so that's a signal. Time out. What else could be a signal?
Are you okay?
Okay, yeah, like this or like this, depending on.
Slow down.
And that? Wait.
Wait. Slow down.
So, but these are very codified. Stop. Okay. They're very codified. We actually learn. When we grow up, we learn what they mean. They're signals. And they depend as well in culture. So there are some signals that if you're going to another country, you want to learn that you don't do them. Because some of them you may know, some of them you may not. So signs and signals are part of your homework as speakers. What gets a bit more interesting is the part of the symbols of metaphors. According to George Lakoff, our scarecrow, and I'm not sure I want to write his name here. Metaphors are elements that we can understand without having to learn them. They don't depend on culture. They depend on how our brain is wired. So what is a metaphor that we use with our hands? For example, if I say it was something very important, somehow we understand that higher is related to importance. But if in the same speech I go, this very important person, somehow it doesn't connect. Right? Somehow it doesn't make sense. Something else that I did recently in a workshop. There was a workshop about getting out of your comfort zone. And I was telling to these people, there is where you are today and where you want to be tomorrow. And between today and tomorrow there is a distance. Okay, there with my hands, I'm creating a metaphor. That distance from now on was representing for them the distance that you have to cross between your comfort zone and where you want to be tomorrow. And the rest of the workshop, I just had to do this, and everybody understood. So there is a distance, and we all understand that it is a long distance. Because if I had said, you know, when you want to go outside of your comfort zone, there is a distance. And somehow it doesn't make as much sense, right? It feels more congruent to do this. It feels more challenging, it feels more of a distance. So metaphors, even for poetry or even for language, metaphor is when you offer some qualities to something else and you pair them up. So I compare this distance with the concept of getting out of your comfort zone, or I compare this altitude with the importance of somebody or an idea. And when I say that I have a very close relationship, that is also something that feels congruent, probably not here, but more like here, because it's also close to my body. If I said it's a very close relationship,
It could be with a very big person.
it could be with a very big person. Right? But you get it. It's somehow we all understand, somehow it feels okay to go close relationship, distant relationship, big distance, short distance, important. So all those are metaphors. And we can use them to give attributes to what we are saying. When you're trying to say, well, once upon a time I used to live in Mexico, and I go like this, then it's behind me, is in the past, is far away. So I'm giving the attribute of distance to that part of my speech. Once upon a time I was living in Mexico. Well, no, it doesn't make sense. So it's something that actually feels natural. So far it makes sense?
Yes.
The idea of the metaphors? So the idea of the metaphor is that you offer a quality using your hands to what you are saying in the moment.